Hi, my name is Kirk McDowell. I'm doing this video is a training for EAN, Empowering Austin Now presenters. This training is only for that use. It is not for general consumption. It's not to be shared or distributed by anyone other than myself or Louis Brantmeyer. So if you're not an EAN presenter getting prepared to lead for EAN, this video is not designed for you. Okay. Okay, great. So with that said, this video is a training for EAN presenters. So if you're a presenter, presumably you've just interfaced with Louis or myself, and you've requested or been presented this video as an attempt to support you in your leading. And so I want to create with you the intention that Louis and I created for the video, because I think it'll be, build some interest in the purpose of this thing and what it's for. And so what Louis and I wanted was to create something, a brief training that would give all EAN presenters access to and a great head start toward being fully prepared, being effective, being delightful, being engaging, being valuable, right? Creating a transformational experience for participants, wrapping all that up in about 45 minutes, leaving participants taking action in their lives in a way that they would not have if they had not been at your talk or presentation, and then leaving participants using the tools that you provide, right? So whatever conversations or worksheets or whatever, part of the intention here is that, something new is possible the next day, right? So they're actually using your tools and they're taking actions consistent with your training. All right, so that's the intention, okay? So we're gonna get right into it. Okay, so so part of the reason people do presentations is to sell something, sell their work, sell a coaching package, etc. I've got a book on contribution selling at contributionselling.com. So that book takes about an hour to read. I've gotten very good reviews on it, that it's valuable and interesting and easy to read. And so related to the close part of your presentation, I recommend you refer to Contribution Selling, which is at contributionselling.com. Additionally, I've written a book called The Contribution Coach. And I would consider this pre-course work. So it's not like you have to do that. You have to read that book to fully get what there is to get out of this course. But at the same time, that course is a rich body of distinctions in the thinking that sort of precedes leading. So in other words, the distinctions of coaching, right, and all that goes with it is a prerequisite, if you will, or in the background or before, the genesis of what it is to be the source of transformation in a room full of 20 or 30 or 100 or 200 people or whatever it is, right? It's a different game. But the pre-work, right, all the coaching and distinctions and the thinking behind how to make a difference for human beings, that's all pretty nicely packaged up in The Contribution Coach at thecontributioncoach.com. And that is a longer book, probably 4 or 5 hours. Okay, so now we're getting into the training. So I've got about 7 or 8 conversations on little cue cards here. So this is going to be a pithy little training, right? 30 minutes, 40 minutes, something like that. I've already eaten up 4 minutes with the preamble. And so this is not everything there is for me to say about leading, right? Public speaking and leading, transformational public speaking. But it's a great head start. It's kind of the greatest hits. And if you were to master all of these things, assuming that's not already the case, you could be coming in at different levels. Oh, another intention of this video is that it's really effective for people at all levels. So no matter if you're beginner, intermediate, or expert, master, this is going to be really valuable. So, and here's why that is, because it's designed to be transformational in nature. So let's talk about transformation. So I'm recommending you create a commitment called all of your speaking is transformational, like all of your public speaking is transformational, even your coaching calls, whatever, but that's up to you, right? But for the purposes of this training, I'm saying that transformational is obtainable, and here it is. So first of all, what is transformation? Transformation is like something altogether new, something different, something not like before, like a new future, a new possibility, a new worldview, a new view of one's life, a new view of a situation, a completely different perspective on something. You know, something is new and available today that was not new and available yesterday. Some new future pulls you powerfully into action. Those are the qualities of transformational. It's not linear, it's not logic based. It's you have a conversation with someone or an interaction with someone, hopefully a video in this case, and literally something is new and available that wasn't there before. So when I refer to transformation, that's what I'm talking about. And it can happen in a conversation, it can happen in a moment. Now, transformation precedes results and outcomes, right? So transformation is the new view, it's the new approach, it's the new access, it's the new future. And then depending on what the game is, depending on what the endeavor is, it might take more time or less time, right, to create outcomes or results, right? So transformation precedes outcomes and results, and it is something new like not before. It's not an improvement, it's not, you know, 3 more units of, it is something entirely new and different. For example, I'll just give you an example. My relationship with my mother, at about 36 years old, I went into a weekend seminar, and I went in with a clear understanding that my mother was dangerous. I needed to stay away from her. I had lots of evidence for that. I was very angry and locked in and hadn't spoken to her very much in the previous 17 years. So it kind of gives you a flavor of that relationship. I walked out of this seminar transformed, right, in that way, which was I got that she was a human being. She was doing the best that she could. I was filled with compassion. I was and am clear she's not dangerous, you know. Just some things she doesn't really resonate with me super easily. And but she's not dangerous, and I could have a relationship with her, like a mother-son relationship. So, you know, at 36 years old, which is, you know, a good long time ago, 21 years or so, I began to build a relationship with my mother for the first time, and it wasn't just random or from history or the past. Like I literally created a loving relationship with my mother, and I started there, right? But I had to create a whole new worldview. So outcomes and results are still happening 21 years later, right? But the transformation was right there sitting in my seat going, oh, I made that up. She's not dangerous. She's just didn't have a lot to work with, you know, and she did the best she could. And here I am. And by the way, many of the things I'm most proud about myself, I totally got from her. I see it, you know, creativity and smarts and whatever, just different things. So that's transformation, okay? Next conversation, context. So in life, let's say, I'm going to speak like authoritatively, but I'm clear none of this is the truth. It's all just a point of view, all right? Which actually is a context. That's perfect. So context. Context is the vessel or the container or like the worldview in which you hold everything, right? It's your view of everything. In this conversation context, there really is no truth. I don't mean like 1 + 1 doesn't equal 2. You know, let's say that's true, but there's no truth in the game of how to be an enlightened human being or how to shed barriers and blind spots or how to ascend or how to alter one's view of life or oneself or what's possible in a way that's really delightful and beautiful and empowering, like moves people forward, right? So an example of a context, right? You could do a workshop with the context of getting a sale, getting new clients, getting business. Or you could do the workshop with the context of creating magic, creating new futures, right? Many of the words and actions will sound very similar, but the feel of the thing will be different. And where you go to answer questions will be different. And where you go to make the next chapter, the next movement in the conversation will be different, depending on whether your context is get another sale or make the biggest difference I possibly can and leave people, you know, with a new future, transformed and using tools and, you know, engaged and, you know, having received value and so forth and so on, right? And another use of context in this endeavor would be to create for yourself who the participants are, right? So you could go into a workshop thinking something like, oh, these people are idiots, I need to save them, or these people are $signs, I need to harvest them, or these people are idiots and I need to straighten them out, or these people are magnificent human beings, just waiting, having arrived and waiting for the perfect conversation to launch them into their to the new chapter of their lives, right? You could relate to them as magical and amazing and capable of anything, right? And ready to roll, right? So you literally can create that. The context in which you're there, right, is up for you to create. Now, most people don't deal with context. I call that a condition, right? So most people walk through life in a condition. It's not created, it's patternistic, and it's from the past. One of my conditions before a seminar I did was life is dangerous. People are dangerous. People are dangerous and cruel. No one's coming, right? And I'm it. I'm alone, right? And that was literally the context I lived my life from until I got introduced to a new conversation called, anything's possible and people are awesome and life's a playground and we're all children of God, and there's all these, world is full of playmates. Now, I'm not saying there aren't malevolent people out there, and I'm not saying there aren't things to take care with and watch out for, but fundamentally, I constructed that people are crazy and dangerous and no one's coming and I'm all alone. I constructed that, okay? So in the unconstructing of that, I'm left with nothing from which I could create anything, right? And what I created was, life is awesome, and people are children of God, and it's just a big play yard. I get to go play with people, right? So that's good. That's an example of context, okay? Living the work. Okay, so I don't know what your work is because we haven't met, right? And so this is getting created in your past, and you'll be watching this in my future, right? So I don't know who you are or what you're up to, and I'm assuming that if you're watching this, either myself or Lewis have met you and decided that you're worth having on the team and that you can provide value and participate at a high level with us, right? And so one of the aspects of participating at a high level is living the work. What's the work? Oh, I don't know what your work is, right? So really it's living your work, right? So whatever you're talking about, right? I talk about contribution and personal responsibility and integrity and anything's possible and partnership and all that kind of stuff. So it's critical for me to live what I'm talking about. Otherwise, I'm just another dude trying to get people to think a certain way and do a certain thing and, be like me or something or do the right thing, right? And I'm not that guy, and that's not what I'm here for. What I'm here for is, people get to be the author of their lives. People get to create their lives. People get to be awake, right, and responsive to what's actually happening out of their heads and in the world and connected with other human beings and making the positive, loving difference that they would like to make in the world, right? So in order for me to be real about that, like that's actually who I am, I have to live that every day. I don't have to, but I choose to, and it's my delight to. And I look at it like my life is a body of work, right? And every time I'm a contribution, every time I take responsibility for how I'm being or how I leave people, every time I make the difference that I'm out to make with somebody, like I am proud of that. It works for me. This is my choice in life to live the work that I speak. So my ardent recommendation to you is get every day, get more real and more subtle and more deep about, are you living your work, right? And you show up to a workshop fully living your work, right? Great context, committed to transformation, fully prepared. Oh my gosh, it's going to be amazing, right? Live your work. Don't mess around with that. Don't be another person with an opinion. We got plenty of those, right? We need people who are out there authentically living that which they speak. Right? Be one of those, be on our team. Okay, being the real deal. So it's right in there, right? So being the real deal is, being reliable, right? Reliable is a big word. So that's a word people throw around. I'm going to challenge you on that, right? So being the real deal is being reliable to be who you say you are. Living your work, creating the context that you're operating inside of, right? Making differences for people. Right? Being the real deal is being reliable. You don't have bad days. You don't have bad moments. You don't beat people up, you don't be irresponsible, you don't intimidate people, you don't interrogate people, you don't be a victim when things start going rough, you don't be aloof and unavailable, like you're the real deal. What's the real deal for you? I have no idea, right? But whatever you're talking about, be that 100% and fully, all right? And it will make a huge difference for you. I absolutely promise. So be the real deal, be reliable. And listen, you're not. I don't care who you are. I've met some of the most amazing, most powerful, conscious, reliable leaders I've ever met. And human beings are not reliable, right? I've seen them had bad moments, bad days, beat up on people, verbally, but, beating up on people and, being a human being from time to time, right? It's not a bad thing. But if you want to be a transformational leader, that's, by the way, bad news. That's what I'm going for. A transformational leader. If you want to be a transformational leader, being the real deal, being reliable, I'm going to use a sports analogy. I apologize if that's not your thing, but I'm from New Orleans and I'm kind of a rainy day Saints fan. You look at somebody like Drew Brees. He's a Hall of Fame quarterback. Some people say the best ever, but probably in the top 5 for sure. And listen, here's how he does it. He's reliable. At the beginning of every game, he's fully prepared. He knows what's going on. He's got the back of every team member. He doesn't have bad days. He doesn't have bad games. He doesn't get cranky. He doesn't get emotional. He doesn't get lost in his emotions, let's say. He doesn't beat up on his teammates. He doesn't interrogate his teammates. He doesn't fall apart when things aren't going well. He doesn't disappear. He's like reliable. And he's the real deal. And you can be too. And I recommend you start today. Okay, congruency of being. Now, you and I know that there are some terrible leaders and some terrible managers out there, right? People who are just full of it. They say one thing, they do another. They lead teams and they pontificate about a bunch of things and do none of them, right? People are often in various positions, just not who they say they are. They're deliberately misleading. They're deliberately misdirecting. They're deliberately being right. They're making points. They're proving you wrong. They're maybe being rough and intimidating. Maybe they're, interrogating you, asking you a question. You have a beautiful answer and it's the wrong answer and it's always the wrong answer. And there's like shame and upset because they're beating up about the wrong answer. Or, people are victim-y, like they're not feeling good. And hey, can you do this for me? Oh, if only I could. Oh my gosh, my whole life is falling apart. Blah, blah, blah. Come over here, sit down. Let me tell you about it for a couple hours, Or people are aloof, they disappear. They're not available when you need them. They're too good for you. They're not, what you're dealing with is not important enough for them to deal with, right? So all of that stuff, we've all had that. It's been very painful. It's been our parents, our bosses, our best friends, our teachers, our whatever, right? Now, the reason I bring all that up is because when you're leading, everybody's had that experience, right? And so what's really critical is something I call congruency of being. You have to, your whole being, your attire, your body language, your tonality, your voice, your facial expressions, your word choices, your tempo, all has to be congruent. Congruent with what? Whatever you're talking about, right? Whatever you stand for, whoever you are, right? It's got to be congruent. For example, you can't be the guy talking about being loving and then beating people up. You can't be the guy talking about being safe and then snapping at people. You can't be the person talking about integrity all the time and never showing up on time. You got to be congruent. And here's the thing. Everybody's got a hair trigger about congruency because we've all had bad managers. We've all had bad leaders. We've all been upset and had our feelings hurt and been undermined and, and worse, yelled at and whatever, right? And we're just waiting for it. And the reason we're waiting for it is because it almost always happens eventually, right? So if you want to be an extraordinary leader, right, be congruent. Congruent with what? Whatever you're selling, whatever you're talking about, whatever comes out of your mouth over and over and over again. For me, it's, being a contribution oftentimes is what comes out of my mouth over and over again, right? So if I'm not being a contribution, people would rightfully identify me as one more person who talks a great game and doesn't walk the talk, right? Do not be one of those people. Walk your talk, right? So be congruent, and they're looking and they're noticing, and they won't necessarily tell you. You can do a 45-minute talk and be incongruent and all over the place and just not working, and go, how'd it go? And they'll say, great, right? That's not where you find out, okay? You have to practice congruency of being. You don't have to. I recommend you practice congruency of being. Practice it with the people in your life who you can count on to tell you the truth. Whenever I lead, I make sure I am videoed and I watch the video the next day. You know why? Because I want to make sure I'm congruent, right? If I talk about being safe, I'm actually safe. If I talk about being generous, I'm actually generous. If I'm talking about being patient, I'm actually patient, etc., etc., etc. Big deal. I find that almost nobody has their attention on congruency of being, and it just shows up, right? It makes a big difference. Next conversation, standing for the big yes. Okie dokie. Standing for the big yes. So if you notice in life, nothing happens until you say yes. So I did a seminar when I was about 36, and I said yes to that seminar. And then it was a 3.5-day seminar, and I got just amazing, amazing, amazing value out of it. And at the moment of choosing, yes, no, I was really more of a no. And a couple of people just kept talking to me until I was a yes. And then thank God for that, right? It's a big deal that I did that, right? Buying a home, you don't own the home until you say yes. If you have a family, you don't have a family and you're not married until you say yes, or whatever, right? So there's potential, and then there's the actualization of potential. There's a conversation about something, an interest in something, and then someone says yes to something, and all of a sudden it starts to happen. You can talk about a vacation for years, and then at some point somebody buys a ticket. And when you buy that ticket, the vacation is happening. Before you buy the ticket, it's just a conversation about a vacation. It's not the same thing, right? So in the world of transformation and, enlightenment, if you will, ascension, growing, learning, all that stuff, right? There needs to be a yes at every juncture to get the next lesson, get the next piece of training, get the next distinction or conversation that allows for the next accomplishment that you're committed to. Like if having a fully satisfying, loving, empowering, enriching, romantic relationship is next for you, then there'll be something to say yes to, perhaps with regard to letting go of your past, some training and development for yourself, going out on a date, whatever. At some point, you have to say yes to something, okay? Now, people inherently are resistant to saying yes, right? Because with yes, there is risk of disappointment, failure, heartbreak, extra work, something you didn't anticipate, something getting in the way of something else you want. Like there are risks associated with yes, right? So what I recommend is you have to get grounded as a leader in the power of yes, and essentially how very little happens or takes place that's worthwhile unless somebody says yes to something. So then the question becomes, how do you be someone that people can say yes around safely and easily, right? Now that's an interesting question. So everything I've talked about up to this point leads to this question, right? And I'll offer you one more thing, and then I'll offer you again the Contribution Selling book, which is about an hour read, and it's at contributionselling.com. So one of the ways one of the ways to create a space in which it's easy and safe for people to say yes is you have to make it easy for people to say no. All right. So when you make a request, or hey, would you like to buy this? Would you like to proceed? Would you like to do coaching with me? Would you like to join my Facebook group, or whatever it is, right? There's got to be full permission for no where you are, right? Because you know what it's like when you feel pressured or talked into something. There's really two moves. There's resistance, and then there's withdraw, right? So when someone's selling you, trying to change your mind, trying to get you to do something, I'll bet you 8 or 9 times out of 10, you either resist, like attack, or prove them wrong, or whatever, or just disappear. You just go away. You know, and you're not there, right? Whatever it is, right? But whatever it is, you want to develop yourself to be a master in having people feel safe saying yes around you, because nothing happens until someone says yes. And we've already established one of the things that we're here for is transformation and people taking actions and using tools and literally having a new future, right? So this is where they get the new future or they don't. And it all hinges around whether or not you've prepared yourself, delivered a piece of work that's engaging and delightful and transformational and valuable in such a way, and then who you're being is congruent with the work that you delivered, and it all comes together in a way that it's delightful and obvious and easy to say yes, right? And that's on you, right? The right message to the right message to the right people, delivered beautifully with love and grace and without attachment, and your stand for the big fat yes. Let me just give you a fun little parable of what I mean by stand, right? This is not a parable, it's a historical reference. I don't know, something. Anyway, in ancient times and in the Middle Ages, all right, warfare was often conducted in the following manner, right? The two parties would select a battleground in some manner, right? Maybe one army is waiting for the other army or whatever. But anyway, they figure out where they're going to fight. It's away from people and towns and villages and stuff for obvious reasons. It's a field somewhere. And it's a few hundred men or a few thousand men essentially lined up, right? Opposing one another, two lines facing one another. And the object of warfare at this time is not to annihilate your enemy. It's not to kill as many people as possible. It's to get them off the field, right? To get a victory, to get a win, much like a chess game. You defeat the king and the game's over, regardless of whether or not there's a whole army still on the field, right? When you play chess, you don't destroy every piece on the board. You just work to get to a very specific objective, which is defeat the king, right? So warfare is very much the same at this time. It's about getting the other party to admit defeat by leaving the field. So in that context, right, the most solemn promise one warrior can make to another is, today I will stand my ground. So no matter what happens today, I'm not moving, and you can count on me. So today I'll stand my ground. So how this relates to what we're talking about is, today I will stand my ground on the power of yes. I will stand my ground on the power of transformation. I'll stand my ground on the value that I have to offer. And I'll stand my ground that it's worth it for people to engage with me to get the value that I have to offer. Right? I'm going to stand my ground in that transformation and contribution and leadership really works and makes a difference in the world, right? That's the ground I stand. And I also am standing the ground that you, whoever's watching this, can be an extraordinary transformational leader, okay? And this is my contribution to you toward that end. All right. Got a couple conversations. There will very likely be someone in the back of the room assisting you in your leading at EAN, and we're going to call that person a room captain. And that person is designed to kind of be in the back of the room facing you, giving you their full attention so that you have someone to lead to. So full attention, great space is designed to, give you an anchor back there in the back of the room. Additionally, that room captain is going to manage anything that comes up. People need paper, people need pens, people need hard surface to write on, somebody needs to know where the bathroom is, etc., right? Your room captain is Johnny on the spot, ready to direct traffic for you so you can stay focused with your leading. And then additionally, there may be some things you would like the room captain to help you keep track of. For me, I tend to speed up and talk too fast, and it can provide sort of a rushed experience, right? So one of the things I train my room captain is, even if I don't know them, right, I say, hey, if you see me going fast, give me a signal to slow down, right? Very useful for me. So you can use your room captain situationally with anything that you specifically, or you can use your room captain specifically with anything that you need. I like assistance in staying at a nice tempo. Um, and then I'd like to have someone warm and loving and supportive just back there in the room. So if I get a little misdirected for a minute, lose myself for just a second, or lose my place, or something like that, or have a personal concern, I can look back at the room captain and they're just there and loving and just right there with you, and it's just easy to get back on track. Another good use of a room captain is sometimes I get into conversations that are rather deep and subtle and have moving parts, and sometimes I can forget, where I started or every part of it. So it's great to have the room captain listening with you. And so anytime you can look back in the room and say, hey, can you rewind that for me a couple minutes, and what was that thing I started with? And hopefully they're paying attention or making notes, and they can say, oh, well, you were talking about X, Y, and Z, and you go, yeah, that's it, boom, and you're off to the races. So they're your partner, they're your leader in the back of the room. Okay, so that's the room captain. And then one of the real big things they'll provide for you, the room captain, is time cards. Time cards. So what that means is generally 15 minutes before the end of your 45 minutes, right? So at 30 minutes in, you've got 15 minutes left. Someone will hold up a card, right, that says 15 minutes on it. And then that lets you know you have 15 minutes to your end. And then at 10 minutes to go, 5 minutes later, somebody will hold up a card going 10 minutes, right? And then 5 minutes, and then time. And then you can just acknowledge it very subtly, just a little nod of the head, so let the person know they can put the sign away that you saw it. And that just helps you land right on the landing pad of how much time you have, right? Because it's very easy for 45 minutes to disappear. Okay, look, those are the essential segments of my training. And then just to recap, what my commitment is that you have access to in training and being prepared, being effective, delightful, engaging, valuable, transformational, wrapping it all up in about 45 minutes, leaving people taking action, using tools, and that this training is effective for people of any level of training, of any level of experience in public speaking training. Okay, good. So there's the, for now, there's the first iteration of the official EAN public speaking training. I hope it was delightful for you and valuable and engaging and possibly even transformational. If you want to find me, you can find me at kirkmcdow.com, KIRKMCDOW. And then I've given you some other URLs. The Contribution Coach for the coaching book, which I really recommend before this, but after is fine. And then I recommend Contribution Selling at contributionselling.com. Okay, guys, I hope you have a magical experience leading. I hope this time was well spent and valuable for you. Thank you.